Hey everyone, and welcome to Screams After Midnight. I am Peter, and joining me as always is Tim.
That's right. Howdy, dowdy. It's me.
Yes. Now, Tim, you have to promise me you can't make the same joke as you did on The Shining, where you try and telepathically give me your thoughts. You can't do that twice. You cracked that joke already. The ship has sailed. I made that clear. We are a horror movie podcast.
I forgot about that time.
We're a horror movie podcast. We talk about horror films every week. We get together. We'll watch, a movie, and we'll talk about it. Which this week, of course, is Doctor Sleep, the sequel to The Shining, directed by Flanagan, who, of course, is a name that's popping up all over the place in the horror genre in the last 2 or 3 years. You can't get rid of him. He's just everywhere. Netflix shows, movies, sequels, prequels. Everywhere.
Do you think a lot of people were upset they couldn't get Kubrick back?
I was upset. Yeah, I really wanted Kubrick to come back. I think Kubrick directing this as a ghost would have been perfectly on point for the story. This is the sequel to The Shining. The book was written as a sequel to the book The Shining. I think it's quite clear that this movie, from the very first trailer, wants it to be a sequel to the movie as well. It's very clearly, hey, we're not letting it go of the fact that everyone, The Shining is one of the most famous movies. So they're going to want to use that. They're going to want to use that to sell this movie. That's probably how it got greenlit.
Oh, no, totally. And I do think to me, like, sequel, it feels like such a weird word for it, because I do think it is really different and stands out on its own, but it feels like just another story that is involving these same characters. I feel like it's kind of a more accurate way to put it, but I mean, for all intents and purposes, it's like a sequel.
I think there's enough in there to call it a sequel. I'll get into that maybe more in spoilers, but I think there's enough there to call it a sequel. But Doctor Sleep stars Ewan McGregor as adult Danny, who's grown up, of course, since the first film, and a whole bunch of other characters. I actually went into this knowing very little, even though I'd seen the trailers. I didn't really know what the plot was or how it was going to play out. I knew Rebecca Ferguson was in there. I didn't know who she was or to what extent, what type of character she was, or what she was going to do. I went in really knowing very little. I was happy to see Glenn McLaren in there, though, because he was on Fargo and Westworld, and I like him a lot.
Did he play Crow Daddy?
Yeah, Crow Daddy. He plays him.
He was really good. You know who I was surprised about was the Abra's mom from House of the Devil. I was like, oh, hey, I don't see her in a lot, but I love her. She's great. It was cool to see her.
Really? I didn't even notice her that you mentioned it.
Yeah, I mean, she doesn't, to be fair, she doesn't have a huge part, but I think Jocelyn Donahue.
Oh, you're right, yes, sir. Yeah. I think it was the bangs that threw me off.
Yeah. But I thought it was cool to see her.
If anything, I was surprised. The only other actor I noticed was one of the team of those characters was the caretaker from Hill House, Haunted Hill House.
Oh, okay, I didn't realize that.
He was there in that. And I suppose the tall guy was also in Gerald's Game, but my first thought with him though is that it's the fireman from Twin Peaks, not not Gerald's Game. But
I like it. Flanagan has a cast of characters. They like to use. So there's a few familiar faces, and then I didn't catch this, but I heard on a podcast that the actor that played Danny in The Shining makes an appearance. I think he's one of the people at the baseball game. But I mean, it's how would you ever know it's him though? Yeah,
he looks so different. But so I don't actually know how much to explain in this spoiler-free section about what the movie is, because I feel like so much of it is.
Yeah, I mean, I would say basically it, picks up after, like you said, it is kind of a meld of the, the book and, the original Shining movie. It picks up, after the movie. So we see a little bit of Danny as a kid to set up some issues he's dealing with. And then it kind of, cuts to him later in life. And I would say a lot of it is dealing with his kind of addiction and sobriety, while also facing like this. It's kind of, it feels like there's three stories kind of going on, because you have Danny's story, and then also you see this like new child character who also has the shine, and you kind of see what she goes through, and then you're also seeing these villains who are kind of like psychic vampires that feed on children that have this shine. And then
I'm glad you said vampires, because I want to say something here. Okay. When one of these psychic vampires dies, basically they're just feeding off the shining energy that comes from shining people to live longer. It's extending their life, so it is kind of literally that's why I was making me think of vampires in the first place. But the reason why I'm bringing this up is because when they die, they one of the thing they feed on is this dust that comes out of the kids.
They call it steam.
They call it steam. When these psychic vampires die, they burst into steam, and it's very reminiscent of a hit television show, Buffy the Vampire Slayer, when the vampires would get dusty. It's a bit slower, but I just wanted to throw that in there.
There you go. We just picked back up on our rewatch, which is fun. We got to the Jonathan episode in season 4.
Oh, that's a fun one.
But yeah, so you kind of have these like 3 different stories going, and then they all kind of obviously end up meeting together in throughout the course of the movie. But I think that's enough of a spoiler-free plot synopsis. Again, like there's a lot of I think surprise and stuff that end up happening that I don't really want to spoil for people who haven't seen it yet.
Yeah, that's totally fair. So I guess I'll ask the question, and keep in mind, so Tim's a huge Stephen King fan. We have had nothing but bad Stephen King movies this year. So
I mean, can't argue with that.
Yeah, you can. You can. In the Tall Grass, It Chapter 2.
Well, I did like In the Tall Grass, and then it's funny, we had so much this year I even forgot that was one of them.
Pet Sematary was the other one I was thinking of.
Yeah, Pet Sematary was bad, although I will say first episode of Creepshow is an adaptation of the Stephen King story, and that was actually quite good. So
wasn't the rest of the season bad though?
Yeah, but the rest of it well, the first 2 episodes were good, and then the last episode was good. So it is very weird where I watched the first 2, got really excited. Then episodes 3, 4, and 5 were terrible. So I got like angry, but then they ended it with a really good episode, which one of the writers on the last episode, Paul Dini.
Woo.
So I was pretty surprised. I was like, I didn't realize he was doing this. So it's a very, very weird mixed bag where I'm like, all right, half this show is great, or at least good to great, and then the other half is some of the worst TV I've watched all year, honestly. Very, very interesting. It's short enough. Maybe we'll review it if we ever have time to do extra stuff. But it seems like the amount of movies we have is kind of hard for that. But
it's hard to keep up with the new movies and do like sequels and stuff to the franchises. Never mind added in TV shows.
Yeah, I would love to do another TV show. I always have fun with this, but yeah, the movies never stop. But yeah, I don't know. I guess continue with your disclaimer if you still are doing that.
Oh yes. So keep that in mind. Also keep in mind. I forgot what the second thing was going to be. We went off track. I forgot there was 2 parts to my disclaimer. One was that you're a big Stephen King fan. What was the other one? I can't remember. It doesn't matter. All right, Timmy.
Yeah.
Did you enjoy Dr. Sleep?
I said it before, in Flanagan we trust, and my boy did not let me down. I was blown away by this movie. I absolutely loved it. And I mean, like you said, sure, to be fair, I'm a very big Stephen King fan. Now this book is kind of, derisive in the Stephen King community. Some people love it. Some people hate it. I would say a lot of people really don't like it. Personally though, I love it. I think it's a great book. And I do think it is kind of weird because The Shining, both the book and the movie are so iconic that, yeah, anything that's going to be billed as the sequel to it, and then you go and watch it, and it's about a man dealing with addiction. Well, I mean, that's pretty, par for the course for, because that's what the first Shining was about. But like a man going through like AA and then fighting weird psychic vampires does seem like an odd choice for the sequel to a movie about a spooky hotel. But for me, I absolutely love it. And in this, I think the performances were great. I think, there's some generally creepy parts. I really love the True Knot, this band of like roaming vampires. I thought they were really well done. Like Rebecca Ferguson is great. And then, all the other people, Snake Bite Andy and Crow Daddy and Grandpa Flick, I think they were all really cool. And if anything, I think we could have seen more scenes from them. And there was actually some surprisingly very touching stuff. I'm not gonna lie, I kind of teared up at a few parts. Like I don't know, it's emotional. I think there's some cool stuff. And then I think what's gonna be hard for some people is, maybe dealing with that. And then the last act, I can see some people complaining that it gets a little fan servicey, which I totally get, but honestly, it did kind of work for me. So I left the theater with a huge grin on my face. I was very happy. I really, really dug this movie.
Interesting.
Which whenever I really, 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 really like something, I just assume that means you're gonna hate it. So now I'm just waiting for for you to be like, I hated it. That's the way you always say it too. Whenever I love something, you always extend the hate. You hated it.
Are you trying to do my accent?
A little bit, but not.
Because you sound like you're doing your leprechaun voice.
Yeah, I'm just getting a little tinge of it. I'm not going like full Morrison or anything.
I hated it. Top of the morning to you. I hated it. You want to wish, my laddie? I have to shut a door, so you can stall for 5 seconds.
For sure. And then, I was looking at some people's reaction. It does seem to be a little bit of a mixed. I think most people have been fairly positive on it, but I do have a couple of friends that really didn't like it, which is kind of a bummer. But I think most of their problems do come with the final act, which I'm interested to see what you think of it, because again, not to spoil too much stuff, but it does feel like a little kind of fan servicey. And that's the other thing, though, that I think is really impressive to me is I think this is a super, super hard movie to tackle. And do you know who was going to do this originally before Flanagan?
I don't, but I'm going to take a wild guess just for the fun of it.
Sure.
I'm going to guess McG.
No, but I mean, I don't think that's like super far off. But no, supposedly Akiva Goldsman was attached to it before, which, Jesus Christ, I can't even imagine how bad that movie would have been. At this point, I feel like Flanagan and Darabont should be the only people allowed to adapt King stuff, because they seem to really get it. But this is such a hard thing to tackle because you have, you're basing it off a book that is a sequel to a Stephen King book, but also there's a very iconic movie that is different from the book. But like you said, not only is it one of the most famous horror movies, it's one of the most famous movies in general. So you can't do a sequel without acknowledging that. So having to, make a movie that is faithful to the book, but also keep it in continuity, the original movie, I think is like such a huge ordeal, and like could have easily been beefed up by anyone that's like a lesser, director. But I think Flanagan really gets it, and I'm, really impressed by the way he was able to pull it off, because it does feel like, a faithful adaptation, to the book. Obviously, they do change things, but it does feel like he found like the perfect medium between, paying homage to the book and the movie as well. So I was really impressed on that front too.
So the moment of truth. you're interested in how I feel about it. A voice of reason. You're looking forward to my opinion because you know that I'm going to speak some sense. Whether that's good or bad for you, it remains to be seen. But you know that it's going to come from a logical place that stands up to scrutiny and will not be wavered by fanboy antics.
Oh, how dare you!
So that's it. I had no idea how to feel going into this. I didn't know how I felt. Like I thought the trailers were mediocre looking. I wasn't really fussed about them. I thought one of the biggest problems I had with the trailers, although funnily enough, the footage I was complaining about was actually new footage, but they shot like scenes to look like The Shining, right? They shot like, a young Danny, cycling through the hotel, but they made it look as authentic to The Shining as they could. And the reason why they did reshoot it is more because they had scenes in the movie afterwards they had more scenes of young Danny, so they had to make it match with the actor, right? That's why. So it makes sense. But one of my complaints with the trailer is that I didn't think visually it looked that interesting. I thought visually it was like, hey, The Shining is such a stark movie. It's got such a unique visual style. And as soon as it cut to the I mean, it was all new footage technically, but like as soon as it cut to the rest of the present day part of the movie, it was like, this is kind of dull or whatever. So I went into the movie not knowing how to feel about it. But I do like Mike Flanagan typically. Like I think he's a pretty solid director. He's not. It's like he's never done like a classic. He's never like done a 9 out of 10. Like he is such a to borrow a phrase from elsewhere on the internet, he is a swimming in sevens director. He's a very solid 7 out of 10 director. Consistently, he knows how to make a good 7.
Well, I mean, we didn't do it on the show, but what was your thoughts on Hill House? Because I thought you liked that, right? Like,
I do not. I like it quite a bit, but it does actually suffer from what a lot of his movies suffer from. Is the ending is the worst part, which maybe makes him perfect to be a Stephen King adaptation director. But I liked. I mean, I probably like Hill House more than I like most of his movies. I think my favorite thing he's done is Hush. And then probably Hill House. I think the rest of his movies all have really good stuff in them, but the endings kind of fall flat. Like Gerald's Game, I thought was solid until the ending. Ouija Origin of Evil, I thought was solid until the ending. Oculus didn't have an ending.
What I think is interesting about Flanagan, I mean, I don't necessarily disagree. I think I maybe like his stuff a little bit more than you, but what I think is interesting is that I tend to like his stuff more and more. Like it seems like each thing he does, I like more than the last, to the point where, like the first couple of things I saw from him, I didn't like at all. And then each one was kind of like, oh, this is actually, better. And, oh, this is actually good. And, I was like, oh, like this is actually great, to the point where I really, really liked Gerald's Game. And then I really liked, Hill House. And then, obviously, to this, spoiler is my favorite thing that he's done. But, he's someone that kind of keeps going up and up for me.
So, and I realize I'm drawing this out, but so the movie starts and the Warner Bros. Logo comes up and we hear the dun, 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 the horn or whatever it is from The Shining, and I'm like, okay, they're going for nostalgia, because even the Warner Bros. Logo is the 1980s version. Yeah, it's just a static version. It's not the animated one. It's not coming onto the screen there like that. And they're going for that nostalgia, that they're really playing it up, and we have these scenes and he's young, and it was kind of weird because it's a different actor, and it's a different actor playing his mom, and I'm like, okay, this is kind of weird, but
can I say a thing about that real quick? Mm-hmm. I was actually relieved when I saw that, because I feel like I'm just glad that we're not doing the CGI de-aging, kind of thing, because it's just so distracting. And I it does take you out a little bit because it is like different actors and stuff, but I like that much more than, just like, doing a CGI thing.
I think the problem to an extent is that Shelley Duvall has a really distinct way of speaking, and it doesn't quite get matched here, although I have a bigger problem later, which we're going to get into a fight about, I think. So, okay. So it does some of the stuff he's kid, and it sets up and so early on in the story, when they were first setting up this immortal psychic vampire thing, the first batch of that stuff, I pretty much thought, I'm going to hate this movie. I thought, I hate this. What is this nonsense? Why are we doing this? This feels so out of left field. What is happening? Because I didn't know any of this really going in. And then
See, that also might help with me too, like, because yeah, if all you know is The Shining, it is kind of like a left turn, but like, we're dealing with vampires now. What?
Right, and then the movie kept going, and it interests me to Abra, the new Shining character. I mean, the movie has a little bit of set in 2011, but then we meet her properly in 2019, like present day, and she's like 13, 14 years old. I kind of liked her. I kind of liked the idea of like her and Danny kind of communicating and teaming up and maybe like taking on these villains to discover. Like, as the movie went on, it kind of won me over just to have been a decent story on its own. So I have some pretty extreme thoughts. But then you bring up the third act. You mentioned it multiple times there where you know people who the third act has completely stopped the movie dead for them. And I actually don't hate the idea of the third act for the most part. I think I saw it going there almost the entire time. Like I think within 10 minutes of the movie starting, I said, I bet this happens in the final like half hour or whatever. And so when it was eventually kind of like clearly hidden that way, like 2/3 or whatever into the movie, I was kind of thinking like, yeah, of course we're doing that. Of course we're doing it. But for me, it did get a bit messy in the last act. I thought the actual sort of culmination of the conflict was kind of, because I think what I liked about the movie in the middle and when it was really building up a lot of the stuff is that it kind of was really playing with its rules, and it was really establishing what the rules were. Of how the Shining works and how there's different types of shines, and like Abra's a seer, she can go and look for things, but there's other types of shines who can, like, I think they refer to her as a pusher, where she can actually make someone do something. Like, it kind of expands the mythology a little bit. And does that, and I was into that stuff, but I think the ending just kind of went for a lot of really over the top CGI nonsense visuals that I thought were really anti-Shining. And it's not that I need the plot to be like The Shining, but what I mean is by that is that nothing in The Shining feels like everything's so it's got very stark moments, but everything feels so classy. But there's moments in this that feel like, oh yeah, this is any supernatural movie from the last 10 years where they want to show something over the top and horrifying and CGI. And there's one moment in particular that really just made me go, oh, whatever. And I do have some other problems as well. I think it's too long. It's 2.5 hours long. I think you could easily cut 30 minutes out of this, and a lot of it would be from the start of the movie. I think almost all of the 2011 portion of the movie you could probably cut. I don't understand why Danny has this, because for me, Danny's got like this redemptive kind of part to him where he's kind of like his dad a little bit. He's a bit of a drunk, and although with him it makes sense because he's trying to dull the ghosts and the voices that he hears and all the rest of it. We've sort of seen that in other things. But he goes on this thing where there's almost like a short film early on in the film where he moves to a new town and he joins an AA meeting, and he kind of turns his life around, and it sets up this thing and kind of where the title of Doctor Sleep comes from, which, and honestly, I think you can cut all this out. I think the actual where the title Doctor Sleep comes from could be taken out of the movie, and it has no bearing on anything. His redemption, his growth as a character could just be through the main story that happens after, which is him helping Abra and like deciding to actually sort of fight the bad guys, because at first he wants to just kind of hide and not get involved, and it's that classic hero's journey of getting involved and doing something. So I think that's a bit of an issue, so I'd cut out a lot of that. And then the other big problem I'd say is that the main villain, Rose, who is the head of the psychic vampires, I think they do something really weird with her halfway through, where they kind of like ruin her threat, and I never got it back after it.
Okay.
There's a point in the movie where it made her feel weaker than the heroes, and I never. So for the rest of the film, because they make this big choice at the start of Act 3 to do something that feels very, very extreme, right? Because we have to beat Rose, so we have to do this, and I went, but why? Like, you can already kick her ass. We saw this already. Like, she could be beat. I don't know. Like, so that was another problem I had just from the story on its own. Because I think that problem in the pacing and what we could cut out, those are problems I'm going to levy on the film quite heavily, because those are problems with the story on its own that has nothing to do with The Shining. But here's my other bold take. I think this movie would be better if they just changed the character names and didn't connect it to The Shining. If they said, we want to do an adaptation of this book, we don't want to have to tie it to The Shining, so here's what we're going to do. We have this kid who's a psychic, we won't use the word Shining, we'll call it something else, and we'll just do that story. Because I think the story itself is actually really good. Like, you know, because you've got this band of psychic vampires hunting children who have shine powers, and you've got Abra who can sort of sense them and wants to try and stop them, because, you know, she's a good character. And it's kind of this drunken, you know, shining guy who has a redemption arc in him, who has to like maybe make the choice to be a hero. All of this works for me. But tying it back to The Shining is when the movie's at its worst, and it feels kind of pointless. And we'll get to some serious, you know, parts of that at various points. But yeah, so it's a mixed bag. I guess if you're asking me what I think about it, I think it's pretty solidly made, but it does kind of fall under the burden of trying to be a Shining movie. Too much, and that stuff I think you could actually take out in the movie and be better for it. You could just rename a few things and make it its own story, because it's so different from The Shining that it can be.
Yeah, no, totally. It is very strange, and like I'm not sure if King ever talked about this, but like I do wonder if this did start off as something different, and then he, you know, or I don't know, maybe someone suggested like, hey man, you gotta do like, you know, follow up like on one of your famous things, and yeah, I don't know if he you know, just kind of tied it in, because it does feel extremely different. But I mean, it really doesn't bother me though. Like I wouldn't necessarily disagree with you on any of those points. Like it is super long. It is one of those things though where I was so into it, like the length didn't really bother me. And especially you know, a lot of the stuff you were talking about, I think to me I actually really liked, and yeah, it's not very you know, horror-y or anything, but I feel like maybe it is one of those things that makes more sense in the book, because you know, in the book you can have like these kind of like recurring themes and callbacks and stuff. Like you kind of see early on this scene of him when he's at like his lowest, when he's you know, like drinking and doing drugs, and he's like, you know, sleeping with his girl and stuff, and he has this very like specific incident that kind of gets repeated like again and again in the book, and they, you know, kind of just do it real quick you know, in the movie. But I feel like that stuff though I do think is really interesting, because you know, I think so much of The Shining is about you know, someone dealing with, you know, his like addiction. And then I think it's interesting to have this, which is basically someone dealing with their sobriety. Like, you know, someone, you know, because, you know, in The Shining, you see someone succumbing to their addictions instead of getting over it. And I think it's interesting to kind of, now we have the opposite, where you actually are seeing, you know, someone dealing with that repercussions and kind of, you know, falling into those same traits, but being able to recognize it and get out of it. Now,
I do think it's interesting though, and probably to appease King, whenever any mention or allusion to what happened in the first movie comes up, at no point does Danny ever sound like he thinks his dad was at fault. He always talks about, you know, it just sounds like, no, the ghost made him do it, or, you know, he was, you know, because he gives a speech at AA at one point where he's talking about how his dad, you know, it sounds like he's quite fond of his dad, and I'm like, nah, your dad went crazy and tried to kill you with an axe. Like, I mean, like, you know,
it's true.
Jack Torrance was not a likable man at any point, so that was kind of weird, but yeah, I mean, whatever.
Yeah, and I don't know if you saw the quote that I think Flanagan mentioned it in like an interview or something, but they said something along the lines of, you know, after King watched this movie, he said that, I don't think he went full on and was like, oh, I like the Kubrick version now, but I think he said this movie makes him like appreciate it a little more or something like that, like maybe softened him up to it. So that's kind of cool.
Isn't that nice? I hate to say someone's wrong when they're talking about their own work, but Stanley Kubrick's The Shining is fantastic, and Stephen King is wrong. I'll just say it. He's wrong, sir.
Well, I mean, yeah, I mean, yeah, I can't agree that The Shining isn't amazing, but I mean,
masterpiece.
Yeah, but yeah, I mean, it's, I guess maybe sometimes it's hard to see, you know, some people, you know, handle your work, but it's just weird that he's so, like insistent on it when there's been so many other like bad adaptations that he doesn't seem to hark on. But
I guess for me it's just a weird, and part of it comes to the talking about the pacing and talking about how you can just cut out some to get the runtime down. But even if the runtime wasn't too long, even if it was just looking at the story, it felt weird to me to spend this time in the film to like have him kind of turn over a new leaf and sort of fix his life, only for him to then have to kind of go through the story after that anyway. And I know what you're saying about, okay, it's dealing with his sobriety and he's kind of after he's already dealt with that, but you don't necessarily have to show it. You can kind of just have him start with like, you know, you could have really sped that portion of the film up, if not cut almost all of it entirely.
So I think that's like one of the faults of like Flanagan is like he does seem to be at least, you know, with the adaptations of like King and stuff that we've seen, is he's kind of like faithful to a fault. But it doesn't bother me because since I love the books and stuff, it's like, yeah, please adapt as much as you can.
Yeah.
Although, I mean, in this, it kind of disproves that, though, because, again, the ending, you know, kind of veers wildly from the book. But
sure, yeah. So I will give a spoiler.
Maybe not wildly, but, you know, there's differences.
Yeah. I will give a spoiler warning then, so we can talk about what's in the movie. So full spoilers from this point on. Although I will just say, patreon.com/MailFuzzTV. If you want to support Streams After Midnight and everything we do, you head over there and give us a little as $1 per month, and you get a bonus episode every month. You get an exclusive bonus episode. We've got a doozy coming up in November for you, so look forward to that. But we did a lot of them. We did 4 in October for Octoberthon, but typically you get 1 per month. There's a back catalogue now of about 11 or 12 of them, and that's just a $1 per month. At $5 you get your vote and stuff. At the higher tiers you get other things. So please do go and have a look and see if you want to support everything we do. But yeah, we'll get into spoilers. So yeah, so I think, and then we'll talk about everything that kind of goes back to The Shining, because I feel that's the stuff we want to talk about first. That's kind of one of the big talking points, is the way they put some of this The Shining into this. And I'll say one of the benefits of connecting this to The Shining is the use of the music, and that basically mainly that thumping whenever the Shining ability is being used, and it's like boom boom.
Yeah.
Like, that's good. It gives it a bit of a tone, and it does that. But here's the thing. So I like 2 minutes into this, I went, I bet we go back to the Overlook Hotel in the last act. And sure enough. Now, I actually didn't hate it when it came up, because I like the idea of like, okay, we've got this evil shining person, right? This evil shiner, or whatever we call them, right? The psychic vampire Rose. It's like, hey, she's really powerful. Although I think at this point they kind of ruined how powerful she felt, because Abra kind of beat her on her own, like half an hour earlier. It felt like, wait, why are you so scared of her? Like, she beat her already. You're together. You'll beat her for easy. It's peasy.
Yeah, no, that's definitely fair. And I think the problem is because I think it's okay to beat her, and I do like the idea of Abra being like proactive and like, you know, she's cool, she's kicking ass. Like, I like that aspect of it, but I think the problem with that, though, is you never see like Rose really like I think it'd be okay for her to get hurt, but then you still got to do something to show that, like, okay, but I'm still a threat. Like, you might have hurt me, but I can still do this or that, so you should be afraid. Like, I feel like we don't really see that.
Yeah, she lost all her mistake for me after that, because I was like, well, she can be beat. There's nothing. No, it just felt like, wow. I get the whole idea of doing this as an extreme measure. It's like, hey, the Overlook feeds on people, kind of like these vampires do.
Yeah.
If we lure her there, they'll feed on her, and, you know, we'll win, and, you know, we'll use it against her. I like that plot idea. I just didn't really believe she was a threat enough to justify doing it. So
sure, yeah, no, that's a good point, and I feel like maybe they should have just had something else with her, because like, yeah, we don't really get too much about the extent of her power, other than like we see that she can kind of like flow out of body and stuff, but you know, you don't really get much else. Like, I guess maybe she's kind of like strong and stuff, and she has that fight at the end.
Yeah, that's one of the things that I don't like as a sequel to The Shining, is like how much they show stuff like that. It's like, you're showing me just straight up supernatural things happening, where in The Shining it was always kind of implied, it was always kind of like, you know, we never really catch a glimpse of something that extreme happening on camera, kind of thing, you know. And I think showing someone floating to the sky, as visually interesting as it may be, feels a bit hokey compared to The Shining. And that for me is where there's a bit of a separation. But they get to the Overlook, and and I don't really blame them for doing it. They go in, and this is because, and it's really this. It's like, no, this is a sequel to The Shining. No matter what you say now, the fact that they're using the Overlook in the plot, and it's a big part to play here, means that no, that we're using that. So. And Danny's looking around. I did think it was a bit fan servicey when he goes into the room where the axe was used and he's looking through the thing, and like all those moments felt a bit fan servicey, especially since I felt like it's been like 40 years. I feel like it would be a bit more rough looking than this. Like I thought it was weird how the typewriter in the main hall still had a bit of paper in it, and the paper looked kind of fine. I'm like, nah, paper doesn't last well like that. Yeah. Not over 40 years.
No, totally. Like, yeah, it should have been a little more decrepit and had like cobwebs and stuff falling down. But then, I mean, again, though, I don't know if you want to make some type of justification. We're saying like, oh, it's whatever power was there. Maybe
supernatural.
Maybe it was. There's a little bit enough left to kind of preserve it just a tiny bit, but which
was fine for the lights coming on. I was fine to swallow that for the electricity running. I was like, yeah, sure, whatever. But so he's looking around, and they have this big standoff eventually, of course. But the big thing that happens before that is when he eventually goes into the ballroom, and we have the bar scene. It kind of mirrors the scene from the original film, and we don't see the barman, right? We just see the hand coming in, and he's talking to him, and he starts talking to him as if it's his dad. And I thought, this is so smart not to show him, because if they show someone who's meant to be Jack Nicholson and he's not Jack Nicholson, this is going to feel terrible. 5 seconds later, they show him and it's not Jack Nicholson, and this makes it feel like a fan movie to me, seeing someone with his hair kind of like dressed to look like Jack Nicholson in the original film. I think, honestly, I know you said earlier how much you hate this, but I honestly think the smart tactic here would be to get someone who can do the voice, not look like him, just do the voice. Because that's the other thing, Jack Nicholson has a very specific voice. So they should have had someone who could do the impression. Don't show him, just see the hands, just have the voice, let it be off camera. And I think that would be fine on its own. If you really want the visual, honestly, one quick shot at the end, that shot from the side that they have there for a lot of the scene, do that briefly at the end. And yes, use CGI, put Jack Nicholson in there at the right age. And I say that having seen Terminator Dark Fate, where it kind of worked for one scene, like I've seen it done well enough. And if it's just one thing where he stopped talking and he's not moving and it's just young Jack Nicholson staring at him, I could have loved with that. Having this actor who does not sound like Jack Nicholson, who is made to look like him as best he can with the hair, but is just not delivering the lines in quite the same way, really, especially later on. See when Abra's running around the hotel, and he's limping around, this actor, as Jack from the movie with the axe, and he's sort of limping. He's like Danny or whatever. I'm like, no, this is just you're taking me out of this. I feel like someone's doing a bad impression.
I mean, I don't know. I can't. I agree. Like, it probably would be a little bit more powerful if you never actually see the actor. Like, that probably would be a pretty moving scene. But I don't know. I don't know what else to really say other than, like, it didn't bother me. Like, I don't know. I thought they did a good enough job with, like, like he looked enough like him for me, and sounded like close enough where I don't know. It just, again, I wouldn't like for people that say like, yeah, they didn't like that, I wouldn't be like, oh, you're crazy, you're wrong, or anything. Like, no, I can see why that would upset you, but for me, it just didn't work. I think maybe it was because of the maybe like the like kind of the power of the scene, because I think it is like a really good scene. Like, again, you have because his dad dies so early, he never gets this chance to confront them and like talk about his issues, and to kind of have it there, it felt very cathartic. And like, and again, like, I like when he's like freaking out and like talking about like, oh, like, this is your medicine, take your medicine, and kind of echoing back to it. And
take your medicine.
I don't know, like it worked for me. I liked it.
Thematically, it was the idea that his dad, who was a drunk, trying to convince his son, who's now sober, to be a drunk again, and he refuses it and says, "No, I'm not going to." There's power in that scene, but I think showing this guy who. Yeah, I don't know. Something about it just feels kind of cheap, and I think it cheapens the moment.
Was this Henry Thomas that played him? I could be wrong, but I thought because I didn't recognize him as that, but I thought I heard that was him.
Let me check. Also, Jacob Tremblay. I just saw his name there. He was like in a really small role. He's like a baseball kid. He gets killed. I'm just looking for the name in the credits here. I assume they have it down here. Yeah, it's Henry Thomas. Yeah. It's
another Flanagan.
You're right. I never recognized him, but you're right.
Stalwart. I think I wouldn't have known that. I think I heard someone else mention that. I was like, oh, hey. But no, I mean, again, I'm not going to disagree with you. Like, people that say, oh yeah, this is stupid, it's fan servicey. It's like, yeah, I can't argue with you, but I don't know, maybe I like it too much or something that it just, it didn't, I don't want to necessarily say like, oh no, it worked for me, but I would at least say it didn't bother me.
I mean, that's fair. And then, the psychic battle, essentially where, because they sort of lure into his mind instead of Abra's. That's the whole point here, because she's been in Abra's mind before. But of course, in Danny's mind, which is set up early on, is that to fight all these ghosts that kept coming for him as a kid after the Overlook, he was taught by, I forget the character's name from the first movie.
Dick Halloran.
Yeah, Halloran, who appears to him as a ghost in this to give him some advice a couple of times. He's kind of his moral compass at a few points. He teaches him how to kind of trap them in boxes in his mind. So they kind of lure her into the maze, the idea being that she's going to like unlock all these boxes and unleash all these ghosts on herself, which is kind of what happens. And I think the plan is fine. I think sometimes, though, again, visually it just felt a bit too fantastical for me for what I think of as The Shining. I think it would be a bit more restrained, a bit more classy. And the scene, and then the part that really bothered me though is when the ghosts all appear and they're on the stairs and they're all just staring at her, and then they all put their hands on her, and it's like this CG thing, where it's going through her skin, and she kind of, and we have all the ghosts from The Shining like breathing in this steam that we've been seeing all movie. But I don't know, something about the visual of these ghosts actually like sort of sucking in steam as if they're like getting off on it. It just really felt, I don't know.
Yeah, well, I mean, one thing I do like about it is I do like, and again, for these stories that are all about addiction and stuff, I like that the bad guys are these vampires who like they are addicted to it. Like the steam is like a drug. So I like the visuals early on of the vampires, like when they're getting into the steam. I like that, but I agree. I didn't like when the ghosts are into it, especially because it never felt like that's what they were about, like in The Shining. Like it seemed like in The Shining they kind of just wanted to, I guess, maybe just exist. Like it seems like they were attracted to Danny, who had the shine, because it kind of like powered them and made them like more. Yeah, I mean,
I'll take that they can feed off of it maybe, but like it's not like they've got physical bodies, so why are they sucking it in like they do have physical bodies? Like, it feels really kind of, it feels like the most laziest way to show this. It just doesn't make sense when you actually stop and think about it for more than a minute. So that's kind of rough.
No, but I do agree with that. Like I wouldn't necessarily say I hated it, but yeah, it definitely wasn't my like favorite thing. But I was just kind of like, I guess that's the way you're gonna do it.
Yeah, like I said, just to be positive for a bit, it did kind of win me over in the middle, because I think, when we meet Abra and she's kind of like communicating like a pen pal to Danny, who. And we should talk about Danny. Like, he gets this job as an orderly at a hospice with all these old people who are dying, and they kind of set up this Dr. Sleep thing where the cat will sort of like know who's going to die, because the cats get the shine apparently. And
that's like a real thing too, though. Like you hear those stories, like
you do.
About these animals and like nursing homes out can always seem to tell when someone's time is up. Yeah. But
And it's
I'll be,
and it sets up this thing where Danny kind of like gives them comfort before they die, because he can sort of like read their mind and like talk about their past with them, and it gives them this peace, and they start calling him Doctor Sleep because of that. But here's the thing: I actually almost felt like you didn't need this in the movie, because this to me was like his payoff, where he's giving back in some way. He's doing something, you know. As Hurley puts it later on, he has a debt to pay. And I felt like this was him already paying his debt, and this was like his nice thing to like, you know, like do something good for people. So I almost felt like, again, you could just cut this out, because it felt weird to give him this happy kind of conclusion and then bring in the other stuff where that's when the main plot really kicks in. It felt like a separate little mini story before we got there to me. But the main story I actually quite like, because once it gets to the idea where they kidnap Jacob Tremblay, the vampires, and they kill him, and it's very brutal for a child murder scene, to be honest.
Yeah, actually.
You know,
when he's like screaming, like that was like really harsh.
Yeah, and his blood, because by the end of it, he's covered in blood and stuff.
And one of the things like the vampires say, and I forget if he asks like if it's gonna hurt or if they're just telling him, but like obviously
no, he does ask. He asks because she just says yes.
Yeah, because one of the things is so it's not enough for them that they feed on this steam, but also just the fact that pain and fear like kind of makes it better. Like it's like food, that's kind of like gives it like a higher quality or makes it more appetizing or whatever. So it's like, yeah, not only are we going to kill you, but we need you to be in as much pain and fear as possible, because that makes it like better. So it's like so much more brutal.
Mm-hmm. It's really rough, but from that point on, because then it became this this moral thing for Danny where he didn't want to get involved. Abra investigates it, finds out where this kid came from, comes to see Danny using her powers to sort of direct herself to him, and he wants nothing to do with it. But then Hurley kind of convinces him that he should, and they become a team. And it was basically this choice to try and save other people who are being hunted, and the idea that, okay, these super vamps, psychic vampires need like the big bad, and we need this hero. Because one of the things that they didn't really sell for me, actually, that I thought they should have, is at the end when Rose finally comes face to face with Danny and she realizes that Danny has this much power. She's like, how did we miss you? And I thought, yeah, I should have really put more into that, like this idea that he is this powerful and that they somehow missed him, and what sort of a big deal that is to her. Like, I don't know, I felt like that should have been played up a bit more. But
well, I guess that's fair, but I mean, if I had to make some type of guess or justification for it, I would assume that probably part of it is like he was probably trying to like deny and hide his abilities as much, especially like after everything that happened at the Overlook Hotel. Like, obviously,
I'm not complaining that I'm not complaining the fact that they did miss him. I think that makes sense, because they even say at one point that if they suppress it with medication or something like that, it can dampen it and makes him harder to find and ruins his steam a little bit. I just mean her realization of like that there was this powerful shiner like existing that they somehow missed this whole time. Like, I feel like it should just be a bigger reaction from her, I guess is what I'm saying.
Oh, okay. Yeah, I mean, I don't know. I don't think I really agree with that. I kind of like the way she delivered it. And maybe it's just the actress, which I don't know if I recognized her from anything, but I thought she was great. And
she was in Mission Impossible 5 and 6, the last two.
I've never seen.
Been some other stuff. Actually, I did have a weird thing with her accent. She started off Irish in this flashback where she takes the little girl, because we get this scene where it introduces her in 1980, the same year as The Shining, and it's them taking this little girl. She's like completely Irish in that scene, and then the next time we see her, it's like she's just American, and then there's like bits where she sounds English. Her accent was going all over the place throughout this movie.
And I don't know. I didn't really notice it. Maybe I have to go back and pay more attention. But
Americans.
But I mean, I thought she was great, and I kind of liked just the way like she delivered her lines. Like, I mean, that line specifically when she's like, "Yeah, how did I miss you?" Like, I don't know. I actually kind of like the way she did it, because she has kind of a creepy, almost kind of like reserved way, like she's not like an over the top like cackling kind of villain, so I kind of like that choice that she made, and like especially in this scene I like which again, like people could probably complain about it being like fan servicey or whatever, but I liked in that scene how she's like going up the stairs, like similar to, from The Shining with like Jack and Wendy. But
yeah, there was definitely some imagery being involved. Even early on when he's talking to the doctor, who I thought was going to be a bigger part of the movie actually when they introduced him.
He is actually a bigger part in the book. I think he's, because they kind of have like, their little band of like, Abra's dad and his friend Billy Freeman that kind of go and like attack the True Knot. And I could be wrong, but I think the doctor was like part of that in the book. But
okay.
It kind of just
makes sense.
Doesn't do as much in the movie, which the doctor though played by, is it Bruce Greenwood, I believe? But another Flanagan guy. He was from he's the titular Gerald in Gerald's Game.
He was also Pike in the newer Star Trek movies.
Whatever.
After rip Star Trek. I know Tara will be upset if she hears this and I've not mentioned Star Trek. Especially your bad
literally everyone else will be happy when you don't mention it.
Apparently my cat thinks it's my time because he's closing up to me.
Well, it's good knowing you. But I mean, like I really, I mean, I don't know, I guess you probably could have cut it, whatever, but I really liked those scenes, and honestly I got like kind of emotional that first person that he helps out. I actually thought it was like really touching, like when he's kind of like talking about how he doesn't want to go and how he's afraid.
There's nothing wrong with the scenes on their own. It just, once this actual story got going later, it felt like, we didn't really need those earlier scenes. We've kind of done a different version of this. But like the actual like teaming up and them coming to like help Abra. He convinces his friend, of course, and they show up to help, and I do appreciate that they had her dad sort of question, hey, why do you know this middle-aged man, and why are you friends with my daughter, which actually reminds me of another section of the movie at the start, which I got the purpose of it was to really establish who this group were, but I thought that Snakebite Andy, who's like their newest member, was going to be a bigger part of the movie because they spend so much time introducing her, and like because they give this introduction scene where they show that she was using her power to kind of trap like predators, like men who were looking for like teenage girls, and she steals his money and like makes him she stabs him in the cheek to make it like a snake bite, which is why she gets her name, and then they kind of recruit her, and it's like through her we get all the exposition of okay, who are we, how does this work, we see them like use the steam and so on and so on, and she's with them for the rest. I thought it was just kind of weird to hold off, and I don't have a problem with those scenes. I think they're all valid because they do explain a lot to us about who they are, even though at this point in the movie I was kind of thinking to myself, what the hell is this, what's happening? But I did think it was kind of weird how they spend so much time on her, and then for the rest of the movie she's just kind of there, and then she just dies in the same scene as everyone else. There's nothing special about her for the rest of the movie. She's just one of them.
Yeah, I mean, again, it's one of those things where you get more time with her in the book, and yeah, I mean, the movie's already so long. I think it's just a matter of like, can't really do everything, and but yeah, I guess it is kind of weird that she does seem like a bigger deal, and then it's just gone. Like, because they take out so many, like pretty much like everyone in kind of like this one like big attack.
Yeah, because it's up an ambush. Abra like sets up a sort of like psychic ambush where they think she's there, but it's actually just a little teddy bear, or a little bunny, whoever it is, and they're just Danny and his buddy Billy just are waiting with their rifles to take them all out. So it's a bit of a shootout. I wasn't expecting a shootout in a Shining sequel, I have to admit, but they all dust upon death. It's really dark at the end though, because Snakebite, as she's dying, says one last like thing, and she makes Billy kill himself. She says, kill yourself, and he does it, and Danny can't get to him in time. So that's great. It was a dark moment. Yeah. But I really like the friendship between Danny and Abra. I like the idea of her like basically awakening the idea of like, hey, you can do something good here. Like, I'm not willing to let these people kill others. We should do something about it and be heroes. I like that part of it. I do.
Oh, totally. Yeah.
Maybe not as a Shining sequel. It's a little bit weird, but in that sense. But as a story on its own, I kind of get into that, and I was actually kind of enjoying it after I got over my initial "what the hell is this" for a chunk of it, and then the ending kind of went down again for me because it started doing all the CGI and like I guess a little bit too much fan service and the Jack Torrance who's not Jack Nicholson and all those things.
Man. one thing, like it's like, you know, it kind of hurts my brain trying to think about all of the stuff they're gonna have to explain like at the end of this movie. Like, yeah, once the credit rolls and like the people go on with their lives, like there's so many dead bodies and stuff. Like, imagine being the, you know, like the mother who you come home, your the husband's dead, and then
Abra's father's stabbed to death. Yep.
Because and your daughter's with this like random adult that you've never met before. It's like,
yes, but he dies in the hotel, because the movie ends with
that's true.
Danny like kind of sacrificing himself to like take the house down and sort of end it.
I think this is one thing that's kind of interesting is they basically do the ending of the Shining book in Doctor Sleep, because how the book ends in The Shining is there's this through line of like the boiler needing to be regulated, and then the end of the movie, like Jack forgets to do it, so he has to go down there and then to like release whatever the pressure so it doesn't explode. But then he kind of has this cathartic moment where he kind of regains his composure and is like, no, I'm gonna let this house or hotel die or whatever, and he lets it explode. So it's funny how they basically took like the ending of the Shining book and then put it in here.
Yeah, it's funny, but he actually still comes and talks to Abra just like he was spoken to before. And it's kind of like, I like the message of the movie, because the ending is not only has he helped her kind of fight back against these like evil ghosts and stuff like he had to, but he also kind of like says, hey, you shouldn't hide who you are, you should be proud of it, and you should let your parents know, because there's a big thing throughout the movie where she kind of, our parents know she has abilities because she did that whole thing when she was younger with the spoons, where all the spoons were on the ceiling, but she kind of keeps it quiet so they're not scared of her, so that they think she's normal. And at the end of the movie, she says, no, hey, I was talking to like Danny, like the ghost was talking to me, and I have spoken to Dad and he's okay too. And her mother kind of smiles and accepts it, and it's like, not this awkward thing. So it ends in this sort of empowering moment where, because the final shot of course is the bathtub lady, much like she was showing up for Danny, is showing up for Abra now, because she was hiding on room 237. There's a whole moment in the hotel where she has to run in there. I will say I'm not super fond of Danny turning into like Jack with the axe and chasing her around. Wasn't fond of that.
I wasn't crazy about that either, to be fair.
Yeah.
Like, or I don't know, at the very least, maybe, I don't know, show more of a struggle or something. Like, it does seem like a very, quick turn or whatever. Especially when, like, if you look at the Shining movie, it's not like he was chasing them with an axe like the second, he got in there. But, I mean, you can probably say maybe everything is amped up because there's so much whatever psychic power.
It felt like she just talked him down as well, and I like the idea of him being talked down and like regaining control. But I never felt like it was really like, if we'd seen him kind of like struggle a little bit, like you say, and sort of then go crazy, but then he kind of fights back and whatever. But it also kind of, it does this weird thing though, where it kind of goes against what the first movie was. And I know we're getting this murky way because we have both the book and the movie to deal with, but in the first movie, it never really felt like the ghost just made Jack go crazy. Like, he already had it in him anyway.
Sure.
In this movie, well, he has his demons, it never felt like he was vicious. He was never bad to people. He was never, the worst thing he was going to do at the start was steal someone's money when she was passed out.
Yeah. Honestly, this is probably like the one thing I didn't really like, because you can still have him like sacrifice himself, or something, but it doesn't feel like, I think maybe it would have been a little better to show that he was like above this, like, not succumbing to demons, especially after all he's like been through at this point, and been able to like not kind of go back down these roads or whatever. But whatever.
So I like big chunks of it in the middle. I just think there's a lot of stuff you cut out. I think the ending is a bit too hokey. There's several things that are a bit too hokey actually, but I do like the characters, and I like I like Danny. I like his friend Billy. I like Abra a lot.
Did you like Ewan McGregor's performance?
Yeah, he's all right. I wouldn't write home about it, but it's fine. Like, he didn't.
Yeah, I thought it was good. I mean, obviously, it's like, I think you can pretty much do anything with the character because we've only seen him when he was like whatever 5 years old or however old he was at the beginning, so it's not like there's a lot of like traits and stuff you need to like kind of bring back or whatever. But I kind of like that he was kind of like a subdued person, like he wasn't like this big over the top excitable guy or something. I don't know, I kind of like I don't know, the way he kind of went about it.
Yeah, actually, so the thing I was going to say earlier about imagery from The Shining, obviously before we get to the hotel where everything looks like The Shining, but intentionally when he was talking to the doctor in his office, it was very much like the job interview at the start of The Shining. It was he was sitting in the same chair that Jack was. It was two chairs on the other side. It was all very similar laid out. I like to point that out because it was there.
Sure.
But yeah, I mean, I like the cast for the most part, though. Zan McLaren, like I say, I like a lot. Ferguson's solid. I think the script does kind of make her feel weak as the movie goes on, the character that is. And I don't think however good she is can kind of win that back, unfortunately. I liked Kyliegh Curran, who plays... or Kyliegh Curran, sorry, who plays Abra. I thought she was really good, especially because at one point Danny kind of like projects through her to talk to to Crow, and I thought that was a really good scene. Yeah, that was really good.
What do you think about like the kind of like the effects of the vampires, like when they would kind of get like these like silver look in their eyes?
Once I kind of accepted it, it was fine. Again, it's one of those things where it's a little bit hokey for what I think of as The Shining. I don't think of The Shining having these effects and having like these like, because in the first movie I talked a lot about how other than one or two things you could almost argue that none of it's real and it's all just him going crazy and it's all just a representation, whereas here it's like, no, this is a supernatural movie. There's like psychic people all over the world, and there's like it's a lot more kind of just straight up, this is happening, this is the world we're in. And one of the things I like about The Shining is it feels so cut off and isolated, and it feels so much like, like you kind of like lose some of the mystique once you say, no, there's just lots of people like this, and there's all this like interconnecting, and there's there's something you lose there. But I mean, on its own, it's fine. Like, yeah,
I thought it looked kind of cool. Like, again, it's not like super over the top. Like, they just get like this kind of like creepy, like like soulless like look in their eyes, and then and I thought it was kind of like cool when they die, and you're seeing like and I kind of like these weird like glimpses of their I don't know, like skeletons and stuff, and then they just evaporate into steam. But again, it does like make me wonder though, like, all right, so there's gonna be all these like dead humans, but like no bodies that people can kind of like pin it on.
Well, I don't think the dead vampires matter because it's disintegrating, because they were around for a long time and then presumably had no like records or were off the grid.
True,
and so on. I mean, maybe like Snakebite, because she's only been there for 8 years, is still missing, but no one's looking for somebody else, because I mean it's implied that the old guy, the fireman from Twin Peaks, it's implied that he was around like for 1,000 years or something like that. Yeah. So no one's looking for him now. Like his original identity's long been lost, and so on. So that's what it is. So I don't want to be too harsh, because I think it's fairly well directed, although it isn't anything close to The Shining. Let me just make that clear. And I do think there's a lot of good stuff to like in the middle of it. I like when it became about being proactive and trying to give him this hero's journey and doing the right thing and going after the bad guys. All that stuff I liked. Although less like a horror movie, more it felt more like a superhero movie, to be honest, at that point. Like,
yeah, I mean, it's I think that's what's interesting about this, because it doesn't. The Shining is obviously very much a horror movie, and this there's definitely horror elements into it, but it feels like it's about like kind of a lot of other different stuff. Like, like I wouldn't say it's not a horror movie, but it's also like mixing in a lot of other kind of genre stuff in it.
Yeah, absolutely. So. Yeah, so that stuff is good, but it's too long. There's some stuff that I would cut out. I honestly would just excise it from The Shining and just come up with a different ending, and take all that stuff out. But if you're going to have it, like I was fine with a fair chunk of it, admittedly, but I do think it goes too far at the end. And yeah, and I wish that they didn't neuter the villain, because there's a whole scene in the middle where like Rose goes to like find Abra, she's into her head, but it's kind of a trap, and Abra wakes up and actually goes inside Rose's head, which is the first time this has ever happened. And from that point on, she's really shaken and she gets injured, and it never really feels like, again, that she feels like that much of a threat because of it. Like, it never feels like, you know, when they make the choice to go to the hotel, it's like, again, I like the idea of this, okay, this is so bad, we can use the Overlook Hotel as a trap. That part, that logic I love, because it's being very proactive, but I just don't believe she's actually bad enough to warrant that. So, or tough enough to warrant it, I guess, is more accurate. But
yeah, like maybe if you just like include like, you know, one other scene or whatever, like I think it's totally fine to, you know, show her get hurt, and I do like that it kind of sets up like, you know, this hubris for Abra, where she kind of thinks like, you know, oh yeah, like I can go after these people, like, hey, no big deal, like I'll shut them down. And then
there's that moment where after everyone else dies and she's pissed about it, Rose like takes all the canister she's got and like ingests it all. And if you'd shown her do something after that showed she was like super powerful now, although they never actually said that would make her more powerful. I mean, even though it kind of implies it in this scene, like it's always just been like, no, it stops her from aging for a while. But I don't know, it's as what it is. But I guess we're ready to rate it, unless you've got something.
I was gonna say. I wonder if
I'm not drunk.
That scene where she does get hurt. I wonder if that was supposed to be a reference to Gerald's game, because it kind of like her hands get stuck in this drawer and she's like pulling out. It's like ripping off her
skin dangles. It's not as bad as Gerald's game, because that scene in Gerald's game is absolutely like one of the gruesomest things I've ever seen.
Honestly, I don't know if like I haven't rewatched Gerald's game yet, which I probably will at some point. Just if they, I don't think they ever put it out on Blu-ray. If they do, I'll definitely buy it. But at least I haven't seen it. But yeah, it is a weird thing where if I do rewatch it, though, I don't know. Like I probably won't look directly at the screen during that scene. But yeah, there's a lot of nice little King references here and there in it, which is fun.
All right then, rating time, Timmy.
Well, again, I mean, take everything I say with a grain of salt, because again,
I always do.
I'm obviously a huge self-admitted King fanboy. I love Stephen King. In the middle of like reading all of his stuff. Like I think I've read about 50-ish of his books so far. I love a good majority of them, and I really love this book. And again, I just think the movie did such an impressive way of melding the book and one of the most iconic movies of all time. And again, I totally understand the complaints and the faults and a lot of stuff you can see as being fan servicey or nostalgia grabs, and I totally get that. But at the same time, as I was watching it, I freaking loved every minute of it. Like like none of it really bothered me. I had a great time, and everything like really, spoke to me, and I thought there was like some really touching stuff, and I love the characters and performances, and there's a few things here and there maybe I wasn't super crazy about, but there's never any point where anything bothered me enough or made me angry or go like, oh man, screw this. So I gotta say I was super happy, and especially in a year when there's been so many disappointing King adaptations. We mentioned the movies have not been very good. We didn't really talk about it, but I'm not really digging Castle Rock season 2. Unfortunately, I mean, if you want to talk about fan fiction, like Jesus, like that season is just like rewriting stories left and right. But I mean, it's not the worst thing in the world, but I'm not crazy about it. So this did feel like a breath of fresh air. Like, yes, finally, this is like the King adaptation I wanted. So I was really over the moon when I saw it, and I can't wait to watch it again. So it's not perfect like the Shining was. If you haven't watched our review of it, go watch that. But I'm pretty sure we both gave it like a 10 out of 10, or at least I did. But so I'm not going to say it's not perfectly bad.
I did. For the record, I did.
Okay, yeah. So yeah, we both agree that was a 10 out of 10. So I can't say that's perfect, like that movie, but I had just such a good time with this. I'm gonna give it a 9 out of 10. I loved it.
9 out of 10.
Yeah.
Oh my.
Now, if I could, I would give it 19 out of 10 because that's that's 19 is like a repeating number in the Stephen King book. So that's like, if you talk to a Stephen King fan, they know what 19 is. And they did have a nod to it in this movie because the baseball player was number 19. So that was a nice little nod. But unfortunately, because of math, I cannot give it 19. So I'll just give it the 9.
Okay. I'm not going that high, which is not a shock, I don't think.
Obviously, yeah.
It's tough because I think there's a lot of good things about it, but I also think there's things kind of pulling it back. I think ultimately, I'm going to give it a 6.5.
That's fair.
which is to say that it's almost good. There's a lot of good things in it, but then stuff brought it back down for me at the end. So I'm going to say it's almost good. Not bad, but almost good.
Yeah. And I mean, again, I recognize that, and like I know if you're not a King fanboy like me, you probably are gonna have something more in that range. But that's that's fair.
What's more important to you, Stephen King or Leprechaun?
Well, I mean, I love Leprechaun, but it's such a it's such like a small like no pun intended, but like it's like its own little thing. It exists in its own little world. Like Stephen King feels so massive because there's so many like books and worlds and everything. It feels very encompassing. So I mean, I gotta go with King just for the the amount of material alone. Where I could spend all day watching like whatever 50 different King movies, comic books, or whatever. Like Leprechaun, unfortunately, you only have the like 8 or 9 movies.
Only 8 or 9 movies. That sentence just came out of Tim's mouth. 8 or 9 movies.
That's not going to last you a day.
Last you long enough. I'm not looking forward to I'm not looking forward to do Leprechaun 4, Tim, which is the next one we've got.
Yeah. Well, I mean, we'll see. Who knows how I feel about that one.
Oh, we're going to have some controversy. Are you going to be like anti-Leprechaun 4? It's like, oh, this is the weakest one in the franchise. It's terrible.
Well, I hate sci-fi, and that is that is as sci-fi as a series is going to get. It does feel a little Star Trek-y, that one, but so who knows? Maybe I won't like it.
You're gonna love it. You're gonna be like, yeah, I can hear you now on that review. It's the best science fiction film ever made. It transcends 2001: A Space Odyssey. I can hear you right now. I can hear what you're gonna say.
Yeah, we'll see. People got to keep watching to find out.
I love how the third one was this is the Vegas one, and then for the next one, like the space one.
Yeah, it follows a natural progression of. I feel like they're doing like the typical horror franchise, but they're just speeding things up. Because usually you'll get the space one in like number 10,
and then he comes back to Earth for In the Hood, which was so successful. Did a second one called Back to the Hood.
Yeah, so a lot of fun ones. I think they keep it fresh every time, which is nice. Always trying to do something different.
Oh well, that has been our Doctor Sleep discussion somehow, some way. This has been Screams After Midnight. You can let us know what you thought of the movie in the comments. You can like and subscribe. You can ding the bell on YouTube to make sure you get the notifications. If you want to support everything we do, we did of course mention the Patreon earlier. But you can also rate the podcast. You can rate the podcast on Apple Podcasts. Give us 5 stars. That helps us out a lot. You can, get us on Twitter at Screams Midnight. Get all our nonsense on there. Tim says a lot of silly things. I have to do damage control after he says silly things. So that's the whole thing. And also, one of the things that we're doing now is at the end of the show, I'm going to be thanking our Patreon producers. Okay. So thank you to Tyler Hess, Talking Superman,
Thank you.
David Shore, Alison M. Fordas, and Cindy Palacios for being Patreon producers. And of course, Tyler is also a sponsor of Screams After Midnight at the $10 tier, so thank you very much to him.
I recognize those names. Those are all good people.
So thank you to them. So that has been Screams After Midnight. This has been Dr. Sleep. We'll be back next week with who knows what. I don't know what's on the schedule next, but look forward to it, and we'll see you then. So thank you once again for watching or listening. We always appreciate it. Keep watching scary movies, guys, and we'll see you next time.